Event Horizon. It's so good to have you on the show at last, man. Thanks, it's great to be here. Mares and Gentle Colts, the one and only spirit of destruction. Thanks, man. So tell me, no one's heard from you in a really long time, but you just dropped an awesome remix, the Smile song, right? Yeah, you know, Pinkie Pie is really amazing to work with. She was really professional and courteous, but also like loose enough to have fun with it, you know, right? Like, and now you've got a review of an FiM episode coming out. Yeah, actually, I've never really formally reviewed an episode before, and it's the worst episode in the show, right? Yep, by far. Yeah, the worst episode in Friendship is Magic, Season 7, Episode 14, FiM and Misfortune. You think I'm kidding? I say this with no exaggeration whatsoever. FiM and Misfortune is one of the worst pieces of art I've ever had the misfortune of witnessing. It's so bad. It's actually against art. It's anti-art. Stop laughing. I'm not that funny. This is real. Look, I'll prove it to you. The prologue to this episode faithfully gives us a glimpse of what kind of quality of experience we're in for. Twilight comes across two fillies fighting. If you notice, they're heated with anger and physically lashing out at each other because they're children and children don't know better. Fine. Twilight takes a moment out of her day to help them through their struggle and, in the process, gets an idea.
That sounds familiar.
She heads back to the library searching for a book that turns out to be the Friendship Journal. Weird that she can't find it because she literally brags about her sorting system being so efficient.
It decreases the amount of time it takes to find a book you're looking for by nearly 3/4 of a second. Whoa, that much?
She finds the Friendship Journal from season... Man, I don't even remember. I just can't even believe I'm still doing this stuff. And shows it to Starlight. And then boom, the intro begins and you're off with the worst prologue ever written. Man, we're only just getting started. So the main six are called to a meeting so Twilight can remind them of the journal.
This! What is that thing? Why is it so smelly?
I don't know, Rarity. It was your hooves all over that thing. You tell me. It's at this point where Rainbow Dash starts skimming through the book that we get the first kind of good joke in the episode.
Fluttershy's lessons are so small, you can barely read them.
I wanted to leave room for all of you.
You know, now that I'm looking at it, it's not even really a joke. I just found that genuinely funny. I have no idea why. I guess it's just relatable because people have really small handwriting, but it's kind of unexpected for a horse to have small handwriting.
This is. It is called calligraphy, darling. If you're going to make words, at least make them fabulous.
Rarity is the only one here with any kind of class. Take notes, losers. Anyway, Starlight uses magic to make copies of the book, despite the fact that we've been over 1,000,000 times that you're not supposed to use magic to solve your problems.
I wish we'd never released that journal.
I don't understand how many times we're supposed to learn this lesson over and over again. Anyway, Applejack says this.
A perfect copy.
So if it's a perfect copy, that means as soon as everyone buys it, they're gonna open it up and discover that it's impossible to read. Yeah, and they're surprised by the half-star rating. Okay. There's a lot more wrong with this scene, but we're just gonna have to move on. Twilight announces that she's going to distribute copies of the Friendship Journal to everyone, and everyone agrees, yay! So, we get a short montage of Twilight distributing the journal to a fair in Cloudsdale, a newsstand in Canterlot, a bookstore in some city I don't recognize, and even taking out billboards in Manhattan. After this, she's visiting the local school to hand out copies of the book to children, and realizes that Applebloom is happy about the book because it's just making her popular at school. To Twilight's disappointment, Applebloom says for seemingly no reason that they're going to open up a Cutie Mark summer camp, as if the friendship lessons from the book would correlate in any way to the nature or success of a Cutie Mark camp. Twilight doesn't become confused. Instead, this interaction becomes more bizarre. Not only is Applebloom's response is accepted as legitimate, but then Twilight says this.
Yeah, but the purpose of the journal isn't supposed to be marketing.
What? No, really, like what does this mean? Does this mean that marketing is bad? So then what were you doing taking out all those billboards in Manhattan just a second ago? Oh, no, she said the purpose of the journal wasn't supposed to be marketing. Again, what? As in, like, the journal wasn't written to help people market their ideas? How did Applebloom's response suggest in any way that the book was going to be used to market her idea?
Thanks, Twilight. The Friendship Journal's making us super popular. We were thinking of putting together a Cutie Mark summer camp. Now every pony's definitely definitely gonna sign up for it.
Oh, they mentioned that she's becoming popular thanks to the book. But how exactly? Everyone at her school is getting one literally right now. And does that mean that the book is doing the marketing, or is she doing the marketing? Also, is this really how the show's staff thinks people work? In what world would a creative person be disappointed that someone was using their work to improve their own lives and the lives of others in the same process? Nothing about this interaction makes any kind of sense. Anyway, Twilight walks away fretting that the children are succumbing to wrong think about her book before she runs into a group of fans. They explain they're here all the way from Philadelphia and that they made the trek because they got copies of her book. Before she can finish asking what their favorite part was, they ask her to autograph them and then place it in plastic sleeves since they have to keep them in mint condition. It's clear the pair is weirded out, but it's also clear that these guys are just degenerates. I mean, hear them laugh as they walk away. So, just to be clear, I'm not like this. Like, I'm not a collector. My room is entirely barren of MLP merch or any collector's stuff in general. Yet, even I understand that portraying people who are engaged in a hobby you don't understand as losers, who are missing the point of your work and life, is just downright gross. And we barely even have time to unpack how disgusting that is before we're mowed over by the next scene.
Well, I, for one, found the journal terribly illuminating.
I agree. I'm seeing sides of these ponies I didn't know were there.
A couple, I guess, are talking about the journal in the loudest way possible. I mean, you can hear the reverb and everything. Hearing the good news, Twi and Star dip in behind some bushes to eavesdrop instead of handling whatever business they're supposed to be handling. I don't know, maybe it's Twilight's day off and she just spends her free time wandering around town, wondering what other ponies think of her. Anyway, the pair like everything about the book except for Rarity.
I only wish they'd left Rarity out. She clearly doesn't belong in that book with the rest of them.
Oh, I know. Who does she think she is? Certainly she did a fine job setting up the Ponyville Days celebration, but does she really believe it was a success just because of her? The nerve!
Oh no, she was right there and heard their criticism of her. In typical Rarity fashion, she has a public meltdown and bolts off screen. But again, what?
Organizing the Ponyville Day celebration was one of the hardest things I have ever done. But I learned an important lesson. Real friends will like you for who you are, and changing yourself to impress them is no way to make new ones. And when you're as fabulous as I am, it's practically a crime.
Did Rarity write anything down in the journal that suggested the festival was only a success because of her efforts?
But does she really believe it was a success just because of her? The nerve!
There's no commentary about the success of the festival, nor is there any mention from Rarity about that being because of her. Did you even read the same book? But Horizon, that's the point. It didn't say that in the journal. He's taking an unrelated random conclusion from words that aren't there. Oh, he's just delusional. Okay, so then why does Twilight say this?
But that's not what she was saying.
This line indicates that whatever was written down in the journal, if misunderstood, could validly be interpreted in the way the stuck-up stallion was saying. But what was written down? They're literally not in the episode that they're referring to. This entire problem is missing all the necessary context, which is weird because this scene goes out of its way to establish context. Did you guys even watch your own show? Twilight goes to chase down Rarity, but Pinkie Pie tackles her to the ground, and weirdly enough, her attitude about the entire thing seems to be great.
Our journals are everywhere! Ponies keep stopping by to tell me my entries are hilarious!
Twilight has to explain that Rarity is super upset, though, and Pinkie Pie, with this unwelcome surprise, expresses her sympathy.
Aw, that's too bad. Wait, that wasn't even funny.
Ugh, this is so lazy. You know, even though it's dumb, it's actually a good setup for another actually well-told joke.
Okay, well, I guess I'll catch you later.
Considering Twilight has been shown to absolutely have no sense of humor throughout the duration of the show, it makes sense that her attempt to be funny would fall absolutely flat. The part that I'm having trouble with is why Twilight would decide to make a joke to gain the approval of a crowd Pinkie Pie is no longer comfortable with in the first place. You know, actually, now that we're talking about it, there's even an additional layer of weirdness that I didn't notice at first. Twilight's idea of a joke is entirely within character for her, but the only way that she was able to be here telling that joke was because Pinkie Pie was acting entirely out of character at the very beginning of this. Like, you see how she just completely ignores Rarity even though she was literally right there? This is the same character that was behaving like this?
Can we hurry this up? We're on a schedule here.
Twilight, your schedule can wait. Fluttershy's upset.
You guys know that someone has to write this in the script, right? Someone has to write the direction of the scene, and then a bunch of people have to read it and go, yep, that'll work for this episode. This is not very good writing. So anyway, after that, Twilight forgets the fact that she was trying to chase after Rarity, and overhears now Rainbow Dash's problem, because it's absolutely necessary to go through each of the members of the cast and establish a problem that's unique to their circumstance, regardless of whether the problems make sense or not. So here we go.
I whipped out all the Twilight Sparkle lessons because they were getting in the way of the good ones.
Wow, that kid is a savage. So these fillies are glorifying Rainbow Dash, but apparently even Rainbow Dash has limits because she's had enough.
Hey, here's a great idea. Why don't you guys talk to Twilight for a while?
This characterization of Dash doesn't really work. She hasn't really been the type to ever get tired of being the center of attention.
I'm declaring Rainbow Dash the most super ultra extra, whatever you said, pony in all of Ponyville. Say I.
In fact, in this very episode, she checked out reading her own lessons again and complimented herself about her work, despite the fact that others were talking.
I think that's a great idea. I'm in! Yay!
We always said we wanted to.
Sounds fabulous.
I'm awesome. Hey, here's a great idea. Why don't you guys talk to Twilight for a while? So I can get back to things like working and napping and, well, pretty much anything else.
So she has no obligations today. She literally has nothing better to do. And she's going to pass up on this time to be admired by children?
Bruh. This is a certified hash brown moment.
Come on, tell us again about when you met Dowie Doo.
Again? Haven't we already covered that one? A couple dozen times?
So, children acting like children. That's literally all that's happening here. Take note of this because this is going to be relevant later. Alright, finally, it's time to get Fluttershy out of the way. I sure hope they save the best for last. So we come to a scene where a crowd is surrounding a cornered Fluttershy who's cowering in front of doors? Doors she could probably just open and leave the situation with? I can't even summarize the problem with this scene. I'm just gonna subject you to this torture yourself.
Fluttershy, what's wrong?
We want answers!
Yeah, we're entitled to know!
Ugh.
We want to know why Fluttershy keeps learning the same thing over and over again. Be assertive already!
Even I've learned more than she has. Why can't I be in the book?
What? Really? Are you attacking my friend because you want to be in a book?
I see why Starlight's still learning.
It's okay. I got this, girls.
Warning, warning, cringy moment incoming. This is a cringe alert. I repeat, this is a cringe alert.
Listen up! I am more assertive. And yes, it took me a while to get there. But can you honestly say that you could learn something one time and completely change who you are? I didn't think so.
Is this even real at this point? How is this not parody now? Using canon characters to directly respond to show critics in character, in universe? What?
Listen up! I am more assertive.
Once again, though, out of nowhere comes this really great joke.
Wow. You're way different from the Fluttershy in the book. I don't know how I feel about that.
Whoever's writing these anti-jokes is absolutely stellar at killing all the momentum. It's great.
It feels
feels like every pony in Equestria is missing the friendship part of the friendship journals.
Again, this is a spectacularly stupid take. The characterization of Twilight in this episode paints her out to be a genuine psychopath. If you think that's an exaggeration, remember that psychopathy is associated with lacking empathy and a consistent disregard for others. Twilight had a view of how people would receive the publishing of her book. That view was met with the slap of reality. This happens to everyone. You can never really know how people will react to something until it just happens. However, the moral of the episode is that it's everyone else's fault. They're too busy trying to sound pretentious, or they're too big of losers, or their expectations are too high. There's zero attempt to understand them or feel any kind of empathy or compassion. And the episode only gets worse. It's after this point the staff just does the "I've been driven to madness" cliche with Rarity. Like verbatim. Nothing clever, modified, or different about it, just literally the cliche. Rarity tells them that she's been getting cancellations for days because no one likes her from the friendship journal anymore, but it's not made clear what it is that they don't like about Rarity. Nobody's illustrated what their grievances with Rarity are, which is pretty important information for us as audience members to have if you want us to sympathize with her drama. Oh, hey, Horizon, the crowd doesn't like Rarity because they're envious that she's a successful business pony, and they think she thinks she's too good for them. Okay, great. Well, not great. That's pretty outrageous. I can't believe she's going through that. Am I the stupid one here?
I need 100 blankets, and I need them now!
Oh, right. I forgot about Applejack. Ugh. You know, I'm writing this script right now, and I just feel exhausted. Anyway, Applejack is admired far too much, and that's evidently a problem.
I'm popular, Twilight. I'm popular, and I don't like it one bit.
Her admiring fans want to be considered family, and she's taking it literally and won't kick them out of Sweet Apple Acres.
Yep, okay, makes perfect sense. No, I have no objections. If that's what you say happened, then who am I to argue? Oswald, carry on, I don't care. I quit, go to commercial!
I can't even go on about this. This is entirely self-inflicted. Twilight's sulking in front of the window because of all this bad news she's discovered today, and she says this.
Oh, Twilight, it's not your fault. Of course it's my fault. If I hadn't had the big idea to make copies, none of this would be happening.
So, releasing the friendship journal was the problem. Got it. Suddenly,
I really think you're being too hard on yourself. Am I?
Oh my god, there's a bang at the door!
her friends are here, yay! You know, I just find it funny that Rainbow and Rarity are trying to conceal their identity despite the fact that the crowd has already identified them. Anyway, now each of the members of the cast is going to quickly lament about their problems just in case you forgot they were unhappy. Starlight is the only one making any kind of sense here until she says this.
It's not your fault. It's every pony else's. They're just focusing on the wrong things, and
then she just dips after saying she has an idea. What a helpful friend. So, with no other choice, Twilight decides she's going to confront the Twitter mob because that always works. A reporter from Gabby Gums' paper shows up to ask her a question that Twilight is immediately going to misunderstand, so she starts monologuing. The reporter tells her she did indeed misunderstand the question and clarifies.
What I mean is, some ponies would argue that it doesn't seem believable that the six of you would be friends.
Believable?
What?
Wait! You solved that triangle-y thing mighty fast. Does any pony need a purple jewel?
Ooh, plum or boysenberry?
Don't both those fruits mean purple?
Yes, but one's a lovely purple and one's, well, icky.
Just put the gem in! We're trying to set a record here!
There just aren't enough words in the dictionary to describe Rainbow Dash's awesomeness.
I can think of a few new words.
And I bet modest is not one of them.
Rainbow Dash and Rarity have very different interests that keep them busy. But being friends is so important to them, they always manage to make time for each other.
Our day of fun was hard to plan, what with Rainbow Dash's extremely time-consuming and erratically scheduled Wonderbolts practice.
And Rarity's weird fashion seasons. She's working on her winter collection, and it's not even summer yet.
So which is the vintage one?
That one, of course.
Ha! You're bluffing.
Am I? How can you tell?
Well, because... I can't. Because the one you want to waste our whole stash on is exactly the same as the one you already got. There's no way any pony would notice the difference.
I'd say it's a lot more likely they'd notice that than some dented tin that cooked a pie a whole 2 seconds faster.
It's 5 seconds faster.
All right. I'll train you.
Yes!
if she comes and stays with us in Manhattan until it's trained.
Gosh, training an Orthros takes a long time. I'll probably be gone from Ponyville for...
Of course it's a deal! Yeah! Wow! I did it! I did it!
I wonder where they could be getting that idea from. Anyway, she's informed someone said that she'd be better off in Camelot. That's kind of hard to disagree with. Twilight insists that things are better off the way that they are, and they burst out into a very jarring song about being imperfect. The entire thing astonishingly lacks self-awareness. The point of the lyrics is to say that people who criticize characters having flaws don't understand that having flaws adds depth to characters. But there's no criticism in the episode that complains about the characters being flawed. The complaints were about the kinds of flaws that are shown in the characters. There were accusations of Twilight being too boring, Rarity being too arrogant, Fluttershy being too slow to learn, and so on and so forth. Literally, the straw-manned arguments they made up for the episode aren't even addressed by the song. Not to mention, the composition of the song is in this really depressing minor chord progression. It's not really appropriate for the song subject. I mean, just listen to it. This sounds more like a melancholic lamentation from victims befalling a tragedy, not an underappreciated cast proving their worth in a seldom seen light. Anyway, the crowd doesn't respond favorably to the song and starts tearing each other up. Oh, and guess what happens? They turn around, go inside, and shut the door. And it's over. Isn't that nuts? So they decide to close out the episode by reminding us adults that the show is meant to help children, and that's the only thing that matters. Then this comes out of nowhere.
And we can't change the way other ponies think about us, but we can change how we let it affect us.
Or how we don't let it affect us.
Finally, a sensible lesson. Woo yeah, baby. That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about. Okay, so there's 4 great ironies I found with this episode. So the first is that there's complaining about audiences missing the point of the work in question. The friendship lessons are supposed to provide advice and a guide to work through their flaws to form a bond that's worth fighting for. And while at the same time, the episode shames and judges people they've deemed as incompatible with their own views of life. The second is that the show staff complains about criticism missing the point of the work, and that critics are focused on details that don't really matter, while at the same time, the show staff completely misses the point of criticism. The third is that the show staff uses the characters to sing about their audience being uneducated about good writing practices, while they themselves engage in terrible writing practices. They try to tell you that perfection is actually not good for good stories and relationships, which is true, but then they engage in terrible dialogue, overused jokes and cliches, and strawmanning. And lastly, is the irony of telling the adult audiences their views ultimately don't matter, as the show is originally meant for children, but they established earlier that children and childish behavior were part of the problem of unintended consequences. The episode both acknowledges there's unintended consequences going down a certain path outside of your control, but then at the same time is infuriated that things would happen that they don't understand. The message reeks of immaturity, and the moral is ultimately self-serving. I can't take this lesson away because I don't have people watching me in the bathroom or cornering me on the street. A super minority of people who are watching this would be able to learn from this.
And that leads us to the 5th irony. The fact that they told us the show is meant for children, but they made this entire episode around the lesson that only a minority of adults would be able to learn from, and in application, only applied to them. And actually, in airing the episode, this shows that they didn't learn it. The fact that we're watching their meltdown over criticism shows that they did let it affect them, and it clearly bothers them. And that's the greatest irony of them all. There, I made your video better. You're welcome.
This isn't art. Art serves to start discussions and bridge the understanding gap between our thoughts and consciousnesses. This episode is a PSA, demanding that you stop in what they view as toxic behavior, and then saying that in the end, you don't really matter anyway. This is not just bad art, it's anti-art.
The people who created it had the idea about what it should be before they made it. So it's propaganda. You can say exactly what Frozen is about. So it's propaganda. A truly mythologically based story, you can never fully say what it's about. You can just talk about it forever and ever and ever and ever. So it's a wellspring of meaning.
This is by far the worst episode of Friendship is Magic, and anyone who says otherwise is lying or blind.
Here we go.
He's the leader of the bunch. You know him well. He's finally back to kick some tail. His coconut gun can fire in spurts. If he shoots ya, it's gonna hurt. He's bigger.